My wife hid a secret bank account and spent it on her ex, so I transferred everything to myself and filed for divorce silently. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and for the longest time I thought I'd married my soulmate. Her name's Lily. Sharp-witted, effortlessly kind, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make everyone feel lighter just by being there. We'd been married for 6 years, living in a cozy 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, just enough to feel like we'd built something solid together. I used to look at her across the dinner table and think, this is what stability feels like. Lily worked in marketing, while I managed IT projects from home. We split everything: bills, savings, even the grocery list on Sundays. There was a rhythm to it, a quiet trust that made our marriage feel unshakable. I'd always admired how organized she was. She'd keep receipts in labeled folders, track expenses, and even remind me to pay the water bill before it was due. It was one of those small things that made me feel lucky to have her. Sometimes she'd joke, "If we ever get rich, you'll thank me for keeping our finances straight." I'd laugh, not realizing how much truth hid behind those words. Every few months, she'd bring up financial independence, how important it was for a woman to have her own safety net. I agreed, genuinely believing it was about empowerment, not secrecy. Evenings were simple but peaceful. We'd cook together, her making pasta sauce from scratch while I handled the garlic bread. She'd hum while stirring the pot, and I'd tease her about being too Italian for someone who couldn't even speak the language. We didn't fight often, and when we did, it was about silly things like laundry or what movie to watch. Back then, I didn't know that beneath all that laughter and warmth, there was an entirely different life she'd been building, one that had nothing to do with us. And the first sign of it came quietly, in the smallest, most ordinary way imaginable. It started with something so small I almost laughed it off. One Friday night, I noticed a receipt tucked between the pages of a book on our nightstand, an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind that costs half our grocery budget for one meal. I asked Lily about it while she was folding laundry. She barely looked up. "Oh, that? Just a client dinner," she said casually, tossing a shirt into the basket. "You know how my boss is. He always picks expensive places." It made sense, at least at first. Lily had mentioned networking dinners before, but a week later another one appeared, this time a charge for a spa package. When I asked, she smiled and said, "It was a gift for a coworker's birthday." The explanation came so smoothly, I felt guilty for even questioning her. Still, something in her tone stuck with me. There was this faint defensiveness, the kind you notice only when you're really paying attention. I brushed it off, telling myself I was overthinking. We'd built 6 years of trust. Why start doubting her now? But the small things kept piling up. She started keeping her phone face down, silencing notifications that used to ping freely. When I asked what was going on, she rolled her eyes and said, "I'm just tired of constant work messages. Can't I have a little peace?" Her laughter grew less genuine, her hugs a little shorter. She began taking girls' weekends, which wasn't unusual, except now she'd come home smelling like hotel shampoo and carrying shopping bags she couldn't quite explain. I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to. So I told myself that every couple hits weird patches, that she was just stressed. But at night, lying beside her while she scrolled through her phone under the covers, I felt something shift, a quiet, invisible wall forming between us. And deep down, I knew something was starting to rot beneath the surface. I just didn't realize how deep the decay went until money got involved. About a month later, I got home early from work, a rare quiet afternoon when Lily was still at the office. Sorting through the mail, I noticed an envelope from our credit card company. Normally, she handled that stuff, but curiosity got the better of me. I tore it open and started flipping through the charges. That's when my stomach dropped. There were expensive dinners at high-end restaurants, places we'd never gone together. Weekend hotel stays under her name. Designer gifts totaling thousands. And one transaction that stood out like a wound. 2 plane tickets to a city I knew she had no business visiting. At first, I tried rationalizing it. Maybe work trips. Maybe something for her company. But there was no mention of reimbursement. No receipts logged in her meticulous expense folder. It didn't add up. I felt my throat tighten as I kept flipping pages, hoping I'd find something, anything, that made sense. When Lily came home that night, I was sitting on the couch, the statement spread out on the coffee table like evidence in a courtroom. "Lily," I said quietly, "what's all this?" She froze, eyes darting to the paper. Then, just as quickly, she laughed, a nervous, hollow laugh. "Oh, come on, you're going through my statements now? Those are client dinners, babe. You know how networking is. Hotels, too?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Her face hardened. "You really don't trust me, do you?" "God, you're acting paranoid." It was the tone that got me, sharp, defensive, dismissive. Instead of easing my concern, she flipped it back on me, like I was the one crossing a line. I remember stammering out an apology, feeling ridiculous for even asking. She went to bed angry that night. I stayed on the couch, staring at those papers until dawn. The numbers blurred. But the truth didn't. Something was deeply, deliberately wrong. And that was the night I promised myself I wouldn't ignore the next red flag. I kept my promise to myself. For weeks, I watched everything: our spending, her patterns, the quiet shifts in her behavior. Lily didn't notice. She was too comfortable, too confident in her ability to deflect suspicion. One evening, while she was showering, I sat at her desk to print something and saw her laptop open. The banking tab was still active. Out of habit, I clicked to check our joint account, and that's when I noticed it. A small transfer, just a few $100s sent to an unfamiliar account labeled LS Funds. It looked harmless at first, until I realized LS stood for her maiden initials. My pulse quickened. I opened the transfer history and scrolled further. Dozens of payments. Sometimes small, sometimes large. But the total was staggering. Nearly $70,000 moved over 2 years. My mind went blank. I just stared at the screen, frozen between disbelief and fury. This wasn't a mistake or a budgeting oversight. This was deliberate. I copied every transaction, every date, every recipient into a document and emailed it to myself. My hands were shaking so badly that I mistyped my password 3 times. When Lily came out of the shower, she kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened. I forced a smile, acting normal while my insides burned. For the rest of the evening, I listened to her hum along to some song in the kitchen, trying to reconcile that sound, the sound of someone I loved, with what I'd just seen. That night, while she slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. Who was she sending that money to? Why keep it hidden? Every time I thought I'd reached the edge of the truth, the ground shifted again, and what I was about to uncover next would rip the last bit of trust I had left straight out from under me. I spent the next few days digging quietly. Every lunch break, every late night after she fell asleep, I was combing through bank logs, social media, and old emails like a man obsessed. I wasn't looking for proof anymore. I already had that. I was looking for meaning, for a reason that would make all this insanity make sense. Then one night, I found it. Buried deep in one of the transfer records was a name attached to a PayPal account, Mark L. The name hit me like a brick to the chest. Mark wasn't a stranger. He was Lily's ex-boyfriend, the one she dated years before we met. I remembered her once saying he taught her not to trust easily. The irony made me feel sick. I cross-checked the timestamps of her work trips and found they matched weekends when flights to Mark's City were booked, using our joint funds. I even found a photo buried in her phone's hidden album, a blurry shot of her and him at a cafe, his hand resting on hers. That image broke something in me. When I confronted her in my head, I imagined her crying, apologizing, telling me she was confused or lonely. But the more I replayed the lies, the more I realized I'd been living with someone capable of pure deception. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I became calm in a way that scared even me. I started keeping track of every transfer, every digital trail. I saved screenshots, took photos, created backups. My anger turned cold, strategic. I wasn't going to yell or beg. I was going to prepare. Because now, this wasn't just about love or betrayal, it was about survival. And as I watched her kiss me goodnight that evening, her eyes soft and trusting, all I could think was, "You have no idea that I already know everything." The days that followed felt like living inside a quiet nightmare. Every morning, I'd watch Lily get ready for work, straightening her hair, humming softly, kissing me goodbye, and all I could think about was Mark. Every touch, every smile, every casual "I love you" felt like theater now. I'd catch myself staring at her, trying to see the woman I married, but she was gone, replaced by someone who could lie so effortlessly that I started questioning my own sanity. At night, I couldn't sleep. I'd sit in the living room long, after she went to bed, scrolling through every screenshot, every piece of evidence, torturing myself with the details. I wanted to scream, but instead, I stayed silent. Because if she could lie so well, then I could learn to do it too. The emotional weight crushed me. My chest felt like it was constantly caving in. There were moments when I'd look at her and feel a flicker of hope. Some stupid part of me still wanting to believe there was an explanation that didn't end with her choosing him. But then I'd remember the bank transfers, the messages, the hotel bills. The proof was undeniable. One night she came into the living room and found me sitting there in the dark. "Babe, what are you doing up?" she asked softly. "Just couldn't sleep," I muttered, forcing a tired smile. She came over, wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You worry too much." Her voice was gentle, comforting, like she hadn't destroyed everything we built. I wanted to shove her away, to scream, "How could you do this?" But I didn't. Instead, I hugged her back and memorized that moment, her warmth, her breath, her lies. After she went to bed, I called a divorce lawyer. I told him everything in a whisper, like the walls might betray me too. He told me to gather every document, every proof of her misconduct. And that night, I finally accepted a truth I'd been running from. I wasn't saving this marriage anymore. I was building my escape plan. Lily must have sensed something was off because she started acting sweeter than usual. She'd cook my favorite meals, leave little notes on the fridge that said things like "love you always" or "don't work too hard." To anyone else, it would have looked like a couple finding their rhythm again. But to me, it felt like watching a magician perform a trick I already knew the secret to. She'd touch my arm during dinner, smiling like everything was normal. "You've been quiet lately," she said one evening. "Work stressing you out?" "Yeah," I lied, forcing a chuckle. "Just a lot on my plate." She believed me instantly, because why wouldn't she? She thought she still had me wrapped around her finger. But inside, I was counting down days, hours, transactions. I mirrored her calmness. Every time she lied, I smiled. Every time she texted under the table, I looked the other way. I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her unsuspecting, because confrontation gives closure, and closure is mercy. She didn't deserve mercy. I met my lawyer in secret once a week, tightening every legal knot in silence. We drafted documents that would leave her with nothing more than what she came with. No shared savings, no house rights, no sympathy. Each time I left his office, I felt both empowered and hollow. One night, Lily brought up the idea of a weekend getaway to reconnect. She smiled, twirling a strand of her hair like she always did when she was trying to charm me. For a second, I almost admired her commitment to the act. "That sounds nice," I said calmly, hiding the venom under my breath. "Maybe we should plan something soon." She kissed me, whispering, "See? That's the man I married." If only she knew. The man she married died the day I found that hidden account, and the one sitting beside her now was quietly planning her downfall. It happened on a Thursday night, one of those evenings when the house was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking like a metronome of dread. Lily was in the shower, her phone buzzing on the nightstand. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, pain, or maybe the small part of me that still hoped I was wrong. But I unlocked it. She'd always used the same passcode. What I saw didn't just confirm my fears, it annihilated them. There were messages between her and Mark, long, intimate threads that spanned months. They joked about me. She'd called me boring, predictable, too safe. The same words she once used to describe the life she wanted. Worse, I found voice notes, her whispering, "I transferred the money today. He won't notice." My blood ran cold. She wasn't just cheating on me emotionally, she was financing his life with our savings. I listened to her promises to him, helping him get back on his feet, start a new business, build something together. And then, the one line that gutted me completely. "He'd never leave me, Mark. He loves me too much to ever question it." That was the moment I broke. I sat there, phone in hand, shaking so hard I almost dropped it. Every heartbeat felt like a hammer in my chest. I wanted to throw the phone, to scream until the walls cracked, to wake her up and demand why. But I didn't. I just sat there in the dark, crying into my hands while the sound of running water filled the background. When she came out wrapped, in a towel, smiling, asking if I wanted tea, I couldn't even look at her. Because at that moment, I realized the cruelest part of betrayal isn't losing someone you love. It's realizing they were never really yours to begin with. And that realization lit the fuse for what I was about to do next. Something in me changed after that night. The grief burned itself out and left only precision behind. A cold, calculating focus I'd never known I was capable of. I stopped crying. I stopped asking questions. I just started working. First, I called my lawyer and told him to proceed. Every asset, every shared investment, every insurance policy. I had him restructure them quietly so my name stood alone. He guided me through the legal labyrinth, showing me how to protect myself without tipping her off. It was terrifying. How easily it could all be done, as long as you had the right evidence. And God knows, I had plenty. At home, I played the part of the devoted husband flawlessly. I made her coffee in the mornings, complimented her new dresses, laughed at her fake smiles. I even took her hand during dinner once, saying, "I'm really glad we're doing better." She squeezed it, tears glinting in her eyes. "Me too," she whispered, not knowing that every word she spoke dug her grave a little deeper. Behind the scenes, I was pulling strings. I moved all remaining funds from our joint account into a secure personal one. I set up new passwords, rerouted mail, and gathered all the digital proof of her infidelity and financial misconduct. Every screenshot, every message with Mark, every bank statement. Stored, printed, notarized. My lawyer called it airtight. I called it justice. Lily had no idea. She thought her double life was still intact. She kept texting him, sending small amounts here and there, completely unaware that the accounts were now draining from her end. Not mine. I wasn't yelling anymore. I wasn't begging. I was building a quiet storm, one she'd never see coming until it swallowed everything she valued. And the first strike was already scheduled, hidden in the legal system, waiting for her next move. It happened on a Saturday morning, bright, calm, and deceptively ordinary. Lily was packing for another girls' trip, humming to herself while folding clothes into a suitcase. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, my heart pounding so hard it made my hand tremble. She had no idea that within the hour, her entire world was about to collapse. "Do you want me to grab anything while I'm out?" she asked, zipping her bag. I looked up, meeting her eyes for what felt like the last time. "No," I said softly. "I think I've got everything I need." When she tried to pay the cab driver outside, her card declined. She frowned, tried again. Same result. I watched from the window as confusion turned to panic. She pulled out another card. Same outcome. That's when her phone started buzzing. Notifications, alerts, emails from her bank flooding in. Account locked, insufficient funds, transfer denied. She burst through the door, face pale. What the hell is going on? I stayed calm, almost eerily so. "You might want to check the envelope on the counter," I said, nodding toward it. She grabbed it, tore it open, and froze. Inside were printed bank statements, screenshots of her messages with Mark, and a copy of the divorce petition already filed in her name. The color drained from her face. "What? What is this?" she stammered. "It's everything you built, Lily," I said quietly. "Every lie, every transfer, every night you thought I didn't know." Her voice cracked. "Please, I can explain." I stood up, cutting her off. "No, you can't. Not anymore." I walked past her, grabbed my keys, and left without looking back. Behind me, I heard her sobbing, whispering my name like it still meant something. But for the first time in months, my chest felt light. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peace. And as the door closed behind me, I knew the life we'd shared had ended. On my terms. In the weeks that followed, everything unraveled. Not for me, but for her. The silence she once weaponized became her punishment. She called every day. At first, leaving voicemails that swung between tearful apologies and furious outbursts. "You blindsided me," she cried once, her voice cracking through the phone. "We could have fixed this." But I didn't answer. I didn't owe her my pain anymore. Word spread fast among our friends. She tried spinning her version. That I'd overreacted. That she was just helping a friend. But screenshots have a way of speaking louder than tears. People she thought would defend her began distancing themselves. Even her own family stopped taking her side once the financial records came out during the proceedings. My lawyer handled most of the chaos. I just watched from a distance as everything she'd built, every lie, every illusion, collapsed. Mark? He ghosted her the moment her money stopped flowing. I later found out he'd taken what she gave him and skipped town, leaving her with debt collectors and humiliation. I should have felt triumphant. I thought I would. But revenge doesn't feel like victory. It feels quiet, numb. I remember sitting alone in my new apartment, no furniture yet, just a mattress on the floor and a half-eaten takeout box, and realizing how strange freedom can feel when you've been trapped in love that was never real. One night, my lawyer called to confirm the divorce had been finalized. "It's done," he said simply. I thanked him, hung up, and sat there staring at the city lights through the window. For the first time in months, I didn't feel rage or grief, just stillness. Because it wasn't about destroying her anymore. It was about finally reclaiming me. And in that stillness, I realized peace was the only revenge I ever needed. It's been 8 months since that morning, the one that ended our marriage and started my new life. My apartment feels nothing like the house we shared. It's smaller, quieter, simpler. But when the sun filters through the blinds and lands on the coffee table, it feels like mine. Completely mine. People always talk about closure like it's a finish line, but it isn't. It's more like waking up one day and realizing the noise in your head has finally stopped. There are still scars, sure. I still hesitate when someone laughs the way she used to, or when a restaurant plays the song we danced to at our wedding. But the pain doesn't consume me anymore. It just passes through. I've rebuilt slowly, financially, emotionally, piece by piece. Therapy helped. So did silence. There's something healing about learning to enjoy your own company again. Sometimes I go for long drives with no destination, just to remind myself that I can leave whenever I want, that I owe no one an explanation anymore. Lily tried reaching out once, months after the divorce. Her message was short. "I'm sorry. I lost everything." I stared at it for a while, then deleted it. There was nothing left to say. The man she betrayed no longer existed, and the one who took his place didn't need her apology. Now, when I look back, I don't feel hatred. I feel gratitude, because she taught me something no one else ever could, that love without honesty is just illusion, and trust, once broken, should never be rebuilt with the same hands that shattered it. She spent our savings trying to revive her past. I used mine to build a future, and in the end, that's the quietest, truest kind of revenge, walking away whole while they drown in the mess they made.